what did I say? I wasn't looking to make no enemies tonight. No, I don't want no enemies. I don't need no enemies. I don't want no enemies. I don't need no enemies. No enemies. No enemies. I don't need no enemies. I don't want no enemies. I don't want no fucking enemies. I don't need no enemies. No enemies. No enemies. No enemies. No enemies.
All right, and we're back. It's Saturday, you know it's time for some little rock discovery, and it's the Steve Breit Rock Discovery Show, jamming out on a bit of a wet Pilsen afternoon here this afternoon, waking up from the post Thanksgiving coma, and here with ever present Jake.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's nasty outside.
Yeah, we've
Should be snow. I don't know. And the snow last week was crazy. It was supposed to be like 12 inches, and then not that much came.
I don't know what's worse though, like this shitty rain or the fact that well, at least this shitty rain is melting all the ice from the snow that my neighbors failed to shovel off the sidewalks. So
Shots.
I'm not going to be
Shots.
fucking slipping around all next week like I was all this week. But no, here we are, fucking jamming out. Like I said, we are getting shaken off the post-Thanksgiving sleep coma and better
Steve
off
was out
falling.
shooting ducks.
Yeah. I had a I had a crazy Thanksgiving weekend. Got to visit the family down on the south side in the burbs, and then on the fifth or on Friday, day after Thanksgiving, I had the opportunity to head downstate and do a little bit of duck hunting, which was new to me, but very much enjoyable. Shout outs to Anya and Jeff Moore for hosting me. It was a beautiful weekend at their duck club, and I ended up with
Duck club?
yeah, it was a duck club.
It's a club of people who shoot ducks.
This is serious shit. This is
Wow. I didn't know.
yeah. So it was good stuff, and I ended up with 4 ducks in my refrigerator. So
What do you do with them?
um,
Like whole ducks?
yeah, 4 whole ducks. So I got home Sunday night, and
Bro, your freezer must be like a horror show.
no, actually, I was impatient and I didn't want 4 whole ducks just hanging out in my fridge all week. So I knew that with work this week it was going to be a little bit crazy. So Sunday night I cleaned and plucked all 4 of them. It was about a 2-hour process from end to end. It was about 15 minutes to pluck each duck and then 15 minutes to clean each duck. So about a half hour per duck.
Over here plucking ducks on the Steve Breit Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a first. I have gone bird hunting for several years now, so I know how to bird hunt. I know how to clean birds. It was the first time plucking a duck and cleaning it. So that was a new experience, but like I said, I had 4.
Teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
Steve is, in addition to being a rock connoisseur, a duck hunting, camping, man of the woods, if you will.
I would consider myself an outdoorsman.
In addition to all that, he also likes to drink beer. And,
Yes.
because of that, we have made a staple of every show we've done this year to put together a little presentation of a featured beer for the week.
And this week is no different. And some ghosts never die. And coming off of the October fall season with Halloween just a few weeks ago, I felt this was a little bit fitting. Stumbled across some Bader the Chicago beer that refuses to die. I think they went out of business at least 6 months ago, and I'm still finding their stuff. So as long as I can find it, I will continue to drink it because it will be a mist brewery. It was very good stuff. And today we are drinking their Hip Hop Beatbach, which is a Maybach. It is a 6.9% ABV, so it's got a little bit of a bite to it. A Maybach, yes. So it's your kind of traditional German style beer. I think this one has a little bit more hops in it than you usually get with a Maybach, but it's very good. And this may very well be the last time that this fine beer will touch your lips since they went out of business earlier this year. And this is literally the last of the last stuff that's in local liquor store beer cases.
And we talked about it before, but this is like what, the third time Breda Bros gone out of business?
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They'll be back in some shape or form, especially with the craft beer explosion in the city and just generally around the country lately.
Most definitely. And speaking of just like stuff around the city and stuff, you've been hitting a lot of shows.
Yes.
And as always,
Mm-hmm.
getting a lot of merch, picking things up.
Yep.
Today we have a show that you've teased for a while, been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about what we're getting into today.
Okay.
Use your T-shirt as a segue, I think.
So, absolutely, and this is a perfect segue. So today's T-shirt is from the awesome local band, The Evening Attraction. Shout outs to them. This is their shirt from their show just a few weeks ago at Lincoln Hall. Lincoln Hall kicked ass. They hosted The Evening Attraction, another great Chicago band that we've talked about, multiple times. We've even had some of the band as a guest, the wonderful and talented White Mystery. They played, and the headliner of that evening was Roky Erickson. Roky Erickson. I've always heard it Roky Erickson, but when they introduced him at Lincoln Hall, they said Roky Erickson. So now I'm all confused. But
this has been a thing for a couple episodes now. You've been like grappling with this.
yeah, exactly. And here we are. But no, it was a fantastic set. This was one of those ones where Roky Erickson has been an artist that I've been a fan of for a long time. We played some of their Roky stuff on previous episodes. I believe the live show review with Diagonal, we played a little bit of 13th Floor Elevators, and we've visited this sound multiple times over the course of this show's life. And it was fitting that he came and played, and I was super fucking psyched to see it. Like I said, he's an artist of myth and legend if you are paying attention to the rock scene in America over the decades. Starting out in the late 60s, he was the lead singer of Austin, Texas's own 13th Floor Elevators. Early innovators in psychedelic, in heavier metal, early proto-metal, psych garage, heavy rock a la Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin in that era. And, it's cool to see these kind of deeper nuggets in American music history still out and kicking it, and it was a real treat to see him. But that gets us, like I said, to the T-shirt, and the T-shirt leads us to the song. So let's dip into some music. We are going to check out The Evening Attractions, Love So Fine, off of, what is this? This is the End Again, their most current LP. And like I said, it was a nice coming home show for a couple local bands who had been out on tour with Roky for the last several weeks.
All right, let's check it out.
Yeah. takes care of his own. Do you dare to speak his name? There's evil at the root. Cruel or kind, it's on your mind. Go on and give the dice a roll. Never did believe. Easy come and easy they will go. Didn't you read it in the detail? That if you're idle then you will fail. Now you wanna know an answer. But if you dance then you're a dancer. Didn't you read about it? Oh. The devil takes care of his own. Didn't you read it in the detail? That if you're idle then you will fail. Now you want and you're an answer. But if you dance then you're a dancer. Didn't you read it in the detail? That if you're idle then you will fail. Now you want and know an answer. But if you dance then you're a dancer. Devil takes care of his own.
All right, and we're back. Mild Sauce Live, Saturdays. You know, it's kind of hot. Jamming out a little while ago to the evening attraction, Chicago's very own, with Love So Fine off of the end again. And then we were just jamming out to a little band of Skulls off their debut album from a couple years ago. The Devil Takes Care of His Own. The album was Sweet Sour. And, you know, before we go any further, I got to say, I was out and about yesterday, and shout outs to Joe's Barbershop. Joe's Barbershop, conveniently located right across the street from the Fireside Bowl in beautiful Chicago, Illinois, on Western.
Avenue.
Or Fullerton, yeah, Fullerton, just west of Western, between Western and California. But yeah, went over there yesterday morning, got a beard trim. Was quite overdue, but they did a great job, so shout outs to them. And then, you know, we were just talking in between songs, so we just heard the news just now that, yeah, breaking news, breaking Chicago rock news. We've got
Straight from the news desk, we have Double Door is reportedly reopening in Uptown's Wilson Theater building. It's coming from Block Club Chicago. Shout out Block Club Chicago for all the great things they do for journalism in the city. And they're reporting right now that Alderman James Kappelman is announcing, along with the Smashing Pumpkins, who I guess today did a pop-up at the Wilson Theater, the new location of the Double Door, to announce that it will be moving into that space. So it looks like a second life for the Double Door. Wicker Park lost out on after a weird legal battle that lasted a really long time.
mm-hmm.
And yes, for some reason, the Smashing Pumpkins are co-signing the whole thing. So
I mean, I'm down. Any resurgence of the Double Door, I'm down with. And you know, being in Uptown, that's a little bit closer to my neck of the woods, so I'm definitely not going to complain. But I'll say, I've seen a bunch of awesome shows at the Double Door over the years, and I was always mystified at how they couldn't keep that place going in the original location where it was.
well, it was like a bunch of bullshit with the people who own that building. But you know, what's also interesting about them going to Uptown is that I don't know if you've been reading about, you know, the whole Live Nation, Lincoln Yards
Yeah.
situation and what's been going on there. And you know, while we're doing our little shout outs, like, you know, shout out to all the community leaders and everybody who went out from the scene to support. What was that on Wednesday night? They had a meeting between the community and the people trying to develop that land, and they're trying to put something, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but I believe it's something like 5 music venues in that space, which is, you know, they're not taking into consideration what it's going to do to the smaller venues. So to see the Double Door get a new home, especially far away from that bullshit, in Uptown, like they're smart to remove themselves. But yeah, I think it says a lot. It's gonna be good for the city and the scene as a whole.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, obviously, it's going to be a year or two at least before they get any of these venues up and rolling. This is just announced on like the construction at this point. But, you know, there is, I think, Chicago has a great venue scene, let's say, in Chicago, from like, the underground craziness to, your small stuff. And then you get into like Sub T and Reggie's and, there's no drought of good venues in Chicago, and it'll be interesting to see what, because you said like Live Nation this is like Live Nation venues,
Right.
so with all the
They
changes,
also, like own Ticketmaster and
yeah,
stuff, and they make people use Ticketmaster, which I only like. They like I think they have a monopoly lawsuit against them somewhere in
hmm
a few states. Just to like, where are you gonna put 5 venues, and how is that? And then if you're the people routing all the tours, where are the tours gonna go?
right.
It's probably to those 5 venues.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna lock down, and with Live Nation, it's like, well, none of the independent local venues are ever gonna get any sort of like Pitchfork after shows ever again, or Lala after shows,
Which,
or anything like
honestly,
that.
those are the best venues for those things. Like,
hmm
as much fun as it is to go, like, I love Concord and I love, some of the newer venues that have popped up, but, like, my favorite memories of going to shows or after shows or any of that is, like, the shitty Congress or, like,
Yep.
the Riviera or, like, they're, like, this majestic decay of, like, old theaters that, like, is where Chicago music has always been,
Yeah, and I think to that point, what was it? Concord was in the new, or Congress was in the news again. I think the owners,
Pushing on it.
yeah, the owners trying to finagle some sort of building code, approve my building code, and I'll continue to fix this place up or something like that. So
He's kind of got him by the balls on that one.
yeah, well, the second they named that place a historical landmark, then he really kind of cemented his position in that. But weird stuff, and additionally, we were talking about this a couple days ago. They were just announcing the Woodstock 2019 50th anniversary
Oh,
lineup.
yeah, we did do a bit of research on this as well.
Yeah.
Do people know about the '89 Woodstock?
I had no idea. No fucking clue.
It's not well heralded. But yeah, the Woodstock's coming back. They're going to be back at the original location, I believe.
Yeah, it's that original farm in upstate New York,
Very
and
cool, honestly. The thing that's going to be interesting though, especially after doing like me and Steve having conversations about music is always fun because there's a bit of a difference in perspectives and stuff. So we were talking about it, and we started looking back at like the news coverage and stuff from like '99 and stuff like that, and how all those people were hurt and all the craziness. But the craziness was really like corporate America, right? It was like they couldn't buy water and they couldn't bring water in,
yeah,
and it was like it would be interesting to see how that plays out in a situation like this because I think that's the dichotomy of Woodstock as an entity is that it's like it is it is this peace, love, and harmony thing, but it's also been pimped
yeah.
as hard as it can possibly be pimped.
And as silly as this may or may not sound, as I was in the shower this morning, that was something that I was thinking of, and just this nature of like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but like this full circle nature to where I don't know much about like big big music sort of what we have today, let's say, like your Lollapaloozas, like your Pitchforks, Bonnaroo, how it is. It's like that big singular marquee festival that like doesn't travel around. It almost seems like Woodstock is almost the first one of those to really kind of be a branded music festival that people traveled from all over the country or all over the world to.
I feel like there was one in California that was happening like right before that was kind of based on.
Well, there was like
But
I
yeah,
know
Woodstock was the first like internationally recognized
hmm
music festival.
there was like Altamont with the Stones and stuff,
Yeah,
and yeah, I definitely think there was like some San Francisco stuff going on, but like to that level, you know what I mean?
Not
I
nearly.
think like Woodstock was the big national kind of clarion call of like, this is our music, this is our. And over the intervening years, it kind of evolved into that early Lollapalooza kind of business structure where it was like the big tour that toured around every year. and you got your Lollapaloozas and your Warp Tours, and those were staples on the scene. And then this year was the final year. They're not going to do Warp Tours anymore.
Oh yeah.
And it like so it's like that really kind of ended that era of like the Ozfest or the Monster Energy drink like rock tours, and
Yeah.
there was so many of these big traveling music cavalcades that evolved out of the birthplace of Woodstock, and then it's almost like flipped all the way back to where like I can't think of any big traveling, music festival anymore, to the extent of like, well, you got like Riot Fest that does like 3 locations a year, but it's the same 3 cities every year, same
Yeah, I
locations.
feel like honestly, it's probably just artists looking at their books that it makes sense. You know what I mean? It makes sense for like the festivals and the artists to just like, rather than doing a big festival like that, like shit, we're gonna be on the same lineup in these 6 different places this year. You know what I mean?
But if you
And then
look
you just fly out rather than like touring on a bus and taking your own shit and going this and that. You know?
from a fan perspective, I think, we look at it almost like as these big kind of stationary things, but I think they've almost been like jumping the shark to a certain degree in the last few years. Whereas you look at like, how many of the headliners at Bonnaroo this year were headliners at Lala this year or headliners at Pitchfork?
Yeah, always
You know what I mean? So now they're
Arctic
becoming,
Monkeys are always
yeah,
headlining for some reason.
they're becoming this thing where like, oh well, it's like if you headline this festival, you're just going to go headline this festival next month. So from an artist perspective, I don't think it's changed very much because they're still traveling around and hitting these marquee cities, but you're just not getting, you know. Whereas before, I think Dubuque or Sacramento might have stood a better chance of getting like a traveling tour, and now it's just these stationary things and bigger
It's
venues
that is
or.
interesting. You say that like now it's smaller markets might hurt from that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I definitely think that with this new one, they've really been a brand that I don't think has done a good job managing their reputation or anything like that, because we were looking at the 1989 reunion of Woodstock, and it was pretty forgettable, and even in me like never even having heard of it before. But then I do remember the 94 Woodstock, and I had some friends that actually road tripped out to that, and that was a weird one where it was like, you know,
Wasn't on the same place and stuff. Yeah, it was like in a different area.
it was in like a different area. They were really kind of trying to cling to some of that nostalgia of the original. So they had some of what Bob Dylan and the band, and so there was some of the bands that played the original one that showed up. But then you also had like what Primus and Ecomouse, and
Look it up. Yeah, there was.
you know
Oh
there
yeah,
was
that was
like
a
this.
weird one where they had
Oh, Liz Fair, I think, and Salt and Pepper. Yeah,
Primus, right? It was like Primus.
yeah, the band Primus and Salt and Pepper. That's an odd progressional thing in terms of like vibe that the crowd's like digging onto. So I think they kind of struggled in the '90s, and then of course '99 was the brutal one with the assaults and the rapes, and I mean I don't know if anybody died, but like that was a
One dude died.
that what yeah, so like that was a dicey one altogether.
Way to put it, I guess.
They really do have to you know kind of watch their fucking reputation to a certain degree. I mean, with this one, I one would hope.
It's a lot of pressure.
Hmm.
Yeah, whoever's putting it together, it's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, and especially being like the first of these like big stationary festivals. Now, like now they're coming back for the 50th anniversary. You know, 20 fucking years after the last attempt, and it's like you guys are real late to the game. Like a
And it
lot
was
of these other
announced- it's not
festivals, a
like it was
lot of these
announced 2 years ago.
organizations.
You know, it was announced like last week.
Yeah.
Not that far.
Festivals have like a jump on the organization and having their
That's what I'm
shit
saying, it's
like locked down.
like Lollapalooza, like pre-sale tickets for that are probably already sold out.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah. Oh, and believe me, I was getting my like, oh, be sure to get your Black Friday sale tickets for Riot Fest, and
Right,
I was
right.
getting those emails,
yeah, and they're not
So
there
these guys
yet.
are on their shit, and then like, Woodstock kind of like, oh hey, don't forget about us.
We'll be there. I mean, the thing is though, with that reputation, people will show up, and they
Mhm.
do know that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving back into the music, you want to jump into a song real quick? Marinate
Yeah.
on that, and then get into the show review.
Sure. So
Let's do that shit.
Actually, the next song we have on deck is another track by the Evening Attraction, and that kind of opens us up into our review portion of the episode. So, like I said, this was at Lincoln Hall just a few weeks ago. Um, this was a show that I was looking forward to months in advance when it was announced. Roky Erickson playing with the Evening Attraction and White Mystery. And I believe this was a couple month tour. Like I said, Roky is he's an older guy. He's like of that late '60s era, and I think that they're structuring the tour so it's not super like strenuous on him. You know what I mean? They're doing like 6, 8 weeks on and then like a couple weeks off. So this was the most recent leg of that tour, and it was really fucking good. And like I said, it was a homecoming for two of the three bands with Evening Attraction and White Mystery. And why don't we dip into it? So this is another track by Evening Attraction. This is Say You Will, and again, this is off of The End Again. So rocking out on a Saturday afternoon.
Let's check it out.
It's kind of hot.
Evening Attraction.
All right, we're back. Mild Sauce Live, Saturday afternoons. And, as we've been jamming out to a little bit of this music, we were just listening to the evening attraction with Say You Will off the end again. And, we could almost title this, subtitle this episode, Psych Out Part 3. This very much fits in that garage psych, vibe that we've jammed out a little bit earlier in the course of this year's episodes, when we did the Sun God Ra and Mako Sika episode, and then again with the Diagonal and what was that? Pearl Earl and Black Road, and this evening's set fell perfectly aligned with that. And like I said, it was a very good night out. Really cool to see all these bands. They all performed excellently. I will say though, this is something that struck me. And I don't know if it's just me being weird in my own head, but leading up to this show, I had seen like several pretty underground, raw, hardcore shows at like Chi-Town Football and places like that. And it was definitely a different vibe walking into Lincoln Hall to catch this Roky Erickson White Mystery show. It was something I walked into and was like, oh, it's not all brightly lit in here. I'm not drinking like $3 Modelo's. There's actually like adults here on like dates and shit.
Little bar.
It was weird. You know what I mean? Like I think my brain was a little bit more raw. Coming off of some of the more underground shit I saw, and it was just like, oh yeah, this is how the rest of the world lives.
That was funny. So, tell me a little bit about Roky Erickson. Obviously, was the front for you on this whole show. What was like? What brought you out? What about Rocky, whatever the fuck we're gonna call him? My bad. That was kind of disrespectful. But no, tell me a little bit about like what brings you out for his shows.
So, I think we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but this guy is like kind of an enigma. He's early on in the ground floor of psychedelic rock in America, and if I have the story straight in my head, whereas a lot of these bands were going through and touring and doing acid and smoking a little bud, and Roky gets caught, and being a Texan, and I think he got caught down in the South. They locked him up in an asylum for a while, and it fucked with his head, and so he kind of came out, and I feel like, they screwed him over in that he could have been like rolling with these other, seminal bands. I put, the 13th Floor Elevators, and I put Roky just right alongside with them in terms of my affection and appreciation for that music and style. But I think, critically or, capitalistically, I don't think that they achieved nearly as well as they deserved, let's say. And he's always been a bit of an enigma, at least to me. It's like he's always been in my record collection or in my music collection, but I've never seen him live. So when I saw that he was touring, I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know he was, still kind of active in the music scene. So, and I think we've also talked about this kind of concept and idea before, where it's like, I'm at a point now where I'll go see stuff. I'll go out of my way to see stuff that it's almost like a reverse bucket list. It's like, well, it's not that I want to see them before I die. I want to see them before they die or they'd retire. You know what I mean? So this was definitely checking off of my music bucket list. Kind of shows similar to Alice Bagg earlier in the year. It's like, it's good to see her back around touring again. These are artists that I like, have told myself that I'm not going to miss the opportunity to catch the experience. And, it was a bonus that we had White Mystery on the lineup. I've seen them several times. They're friends of the show. And again, this I think we're talking about a lot of themes that have come up over the episodes, but like, I have seen White Mystery a bunch of times, and I've got a bunch of their shirts. So it wasn't that I didn't want to get another one. It was just like, I'd really like a Roki shirt, or you know what I mean, something else, a little
Gotta mix it up,
variety
gotta
in
mix
the
it up.
wardrobe. And of course, Roki only had larges. Coming to Chicago in the end of the year, bringing only large T-shirts on your tour is, you know, you're gonna have people like me like very disappointed.
You're a rare breed, though, so I'm sure there's not too many
So,
out there.
and not to say that I dislike this shirt. I like this shirt, but you know, I was looking for merch, and this was obviously the end of a leg of a tour, and all the bands were running low on merch. I think this was the last extra large evening attraction shirt. So, um, you know, that's something that comes back up over and over again over the course of talking about music and the music scene on this show. And here it was back again, and I definitely chuckled, you know, as I walked up at the merch table and was like, of course, you don't have an XL.
That's, yeah, I mean, this again is a unique problem to you,
I know. I wish I was smaller.
being a merch god, buying up the merch.
But you know, that brings us into the next leg of songs, and again, like I said, we're gonna check out a little bit of White Mystery. They put on an excellent set, you know, of course, touring on their current record, Hellion Blender, which I did a review of a few months back. I really enjoy this record. I really enjoy the band. They're two great people, two hardworking, just I think people that really are passionate about music in Chicago and do what they can to you know, keep the scene going and keep it strong. I know Alex does a lot of DJ sets when they're not on tour. You can find her oftentimes at the Ace Hotel and other spots around the city, and I think that's super fucking cool.
Yeah, we've had a few. She's spun on the radio a few times. Had some of her vinyl sets. So she's a busy girl, busy lady.
Mm. Yeah, but like, why don't we just dip into it? So I've got a couple of tracks off of their current album, their new release from earlier this year. So we're gonna listen to Boy Next Door and Ghost Signs, and both of these are off Hellion Blender. I really dig this record. You know, it's definitely something that gives you know, sense of musical evolution where, you know, they pick up on elements of old Roki, 13th floor elevators, and kind of bring that into the 21st century, which I really dig.
Dope. Let's check this one out. This is White Mystery, Mild
Do
Sauce
it.
Radio, Steve Breit Rock Discovery Show.
Flashing down my alley. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. I think he's coming at me. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. Just you and me, the boy next door. Ay, 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 ay. Grooving down my alley. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. I think he's looking at me. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. Just you and me, the boy next door. Ay, 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 ay. Cruising down the alley. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. I think he's coming for me. Now I'm coming at you like the boy next door. Just you and me, the boy next door. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. There's a place that I used to know, way down on Western Avenue.
All right, and we're back. Mild Sauce Live, jamming out to White Mystery. Checking out a couple tracks off of Hellion Blender, their most recent album. We were just listening to Ghost Signs and then Boy Next Door. Um, you know, like we said before, Alex and Francis are friends of the show, so
Wonderful
it's always
folks.
fun to see them. So,
Always a pleasure.
and when you're hanging out with White Mystery, it's always a family affair. Mom was hanging out at the show too, so
Oh yeah, she was at one of our live. We live streamed their thing from Wayward.
yeah, that evening at Wayward, which was
Evening at Wayward.
a fun night out. But that brings us to the headliner. So, like I was saying, Roki's been around forever, um, and I think it was very cool to see that. This guy is he hasn't had his own band or consistent band for many years. He's a singular performer, and he brings groups of guys out with them on tour. And I got to say that the touring band that he had with them on this tour was really fucking solid.
Yeah.
It was a really good band, and they were you know it they were a younger band than obviously he was. I think Roki's in his 60s or 70s at this point. So, it was really cool to see a younger, more energetic, enthusiastic band that was excited to play, some of this older music that they obviously were too young to have played a part in writing the
Right.
first time around. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you got
it,
somebody else to be inspired by, kind of.
exactly. And it was a touring band that like I said, they had an energy and an enjoyment on their face and their demeanor, and it came off in the performance. And whereas I think sometimes when you're talking about like older, more legacy heritage acts, you know what I mean? It's like, well, that stuff may have flown in like 1973, but does it translate now? And to have a band that enthusiastically wanted to play music really kind of kept it alive and gave it a vibrancy that made it, relevant in 2018, which I
Yeah.
thought was really nice. And, over the course of the performance, I got to say, I'm not somebody who has, let's say every Roky Erickson album or every 13th Floor Elevators album, but I kind of have I've got the big hits, and he put on a performance that he played what people wanted to hear, which was really cool. He played songs like I Walk with a Zombie and Night of the Demon and Mind, and these are kind of like some of the big classics, and we've talked about it in previous episodes how some bands, it's a shame when you see these guys where you like really have a high regard for them and they come out like swinging their dick like, you guys all want to hear my new stuff, right?
Right.
My seminal stuff was in the last century, but I'm convinced that you guys are not going to get bored with 45 minutes of new stuff that you've never heard before. And fortunately,
He doesn't do that.
Roki came out and he played the hits, and he played some new stuff, and he played a lot of old stuff, and he played a set that the crowd was very engaged with and singing along over the course of the entire evening, which was cool. And it was, like I said earlier in the night, this was like a little bit of a older rocker crowd. There was definitely a mix. There was some date night people there. There was some younger kids there. There was some like old, like very obvious like bikers in that crowd. You know what I mean? So it was like, I think of it like a year or two ago, I saw the Scatolites at Reggie's, and that was like a very strange crowd walking in. I didn't know what I was going to walk into.
Kind of
And
a testament to the artist in a way, right?
oh, absolutely. That show, there was a very delineated set. Like there was the, there was your definitive, like very stoned, like hippies, long hair, dreadlock, white kids.
Right.
There was the skinheads with the boots and braces. There was the two tones, the mod reggae revival kids, and then there was this definite contingent of like women and their dates who came to dance and have a good time. And a crowd like that, just like the show at Lincoln Hall where you'd had, your old bikers, your date night people, your young kids, your older kids. It brings a really fun vibe to the night. You know what I mean? It's not like some of the more aggressive shows or more laid back shows. It's just a really energetic, you know what I mean? People from all different perspectives and persuasions are all kind of uniting and vibing on that same musical kick. So it was cool to see, and we'll be listening to a little bit of new and a little bit of old. So we've played 13th Floor Elevators before on the show. I didn't want to dig too deep into that, although he did close with some 13th Floor Elevators, so I was appreciative of hearing that. But why don't we dive into some more music? So we'll listen to John Lawman, which is off of True Love Cast Out All Evil, which is, I believe, released in 2010. And I think that might be his most current album. And then we'll dip into the classic Two-Headed Dog off of the seminal I Think of Demons.
Let's check it out.
And we're back, Mild Sauce Live, jamming out to a little bit of Roky Erickson, Two-Headed Dog, off of the classic, I Think of a Demons. And, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on, that set, shout outs to whoever provided the visuals for this show. They did a kind of traditional style, oil and water, psychedelic background, light show for the entire set, which was much appreciated. It was very fitting for the music, and it was a nice little differentiation from your standard light show. So shout outs to the entire experience. Shout outs to Lincoln Hall for putting on a great set. They've got a great beer selection, so you're going to make me happy real fast at a spot like that. And good stuff all around. And I think we're getting about to the end of the episode, so only a couple more weeks left in the year. I'm
Yeah,
going to
man,
start
we
thinking about doing like a year in review show or something.
Yeah. We actually had that conversation on the morning show as well. We're gonna try to get together a nice little fun way to bring together all the sides of the Mild Sauce team for a year wrap up.
That'd be fun.
We're
Good
working
stuff.
on it. Working on it right now.
But
so we'll have
yeah.
more news for that coming soon.
So I think about this time we do some shout outs. So, of course, as always, shout out to Jake. Without Jake, this show wouldn't be possible. So, mad shout outs to Jake. Shout out to the morning show, the 3-piece. Shout out to Police State. I think
Shout 'em
Mars is
out.
coming in tomorrow.
Mars will be in tomorrow. We potentially have a couple interviews. I have Apache Gross coming through. We'll see if Reese gets through as well from Save Money. And we'll have Vel in the house. We'll have a whole little fun thing going. But we'll have Mars leading us in around 2 o'clock tomorrow.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And then, shout out to Joe's Barbershop for the great beard trim.
Oh, wait. Shout out Joe's.
Yep. And I think that about does it.
Does
so,
that do it? That
I was because we were doing a local show review, we had a lot of music that pertains specifically to that show, but I did want to include a little bit of differentiation. So up at the top of the episode, we heard some Oben 3s, and I played them because they're kindred spirits of Roky via Austin, Texas. New Austin versus old Austin, which I thought was fun. And then Band of Skulls, I think spiritually they're out of Southampton, England, I believe. And then we're going to wrap it up, I think, attitudinally with a little bit more of White Mystery and Alex White. So we're going to go out with the Lunatics, and this is their cover of The Passenger, the classic Iggy and the Stooges track. And this was off of a pretty obscure, interesting Iggy Pop tribute compilation that came out a while back called We Will Fall. But like I said, this song spiritually reminds me a little bit of Alex White, so that's why I wanted to play this one. So I think we'll go out on this, and then until next week, it's kind of hot, and we'll fucking have some more rock.
Yeah, man. We'll be back again soon. This has been the Steve Breit Rock Discovery Show.
It's kind of hot.
It's
It's on Mild Sauce.
Mild Sauce Radio. All right. There's Passenger with Lunatics. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.